Shocking assault in the park. Police chief discovers amazing truth about the woman he slapped. Mark Henderson, the town's beloved police chief, never expected his day would shatter in an instant. It was a perfect afternoon. Families adorned the local park, kids giggled as they played, and a warm breeze swayed the trees. Yet, within this idyllic setting, chaos erupted. A homeless woman named Lily clashed with a group of unruly teenagers, her voice rising above the laughter, a cacophony that demanded attention. Caught between his commitment to maintain order and the growing frustration of the crowd, Mark took a step forward, heart racing. Then, in a moment of misguided authority, he struck Lily across the face. Silence fell like a lead blanket, the smattering of disbelief sharp enough to cut through the air. Mark felt the familiar chill of sweat bead down his spine, and he staggered back. What had he done? The whispers erupted around him. The weight of their judgment gnawed at his conscience. His entire career, years of upholding justice and fostering community values, lay in ruins. As he replayed the moment in his mind, confusion surged alongside guilt. He was a protector, not a perpetrator. The disgust he felt towards himself mixed with mounting fear. What had brought him to this? Answers eluded him, leaving only a panic-stricken sense of loss spiraling within. The days stretched after that fateful incident. Guilt became a relentless companion, twisting like a blade. Mark found himself obsessively wondering about Lily's past, desperately seeking to understand the life behind the woman he had slapped. Late nights spent poring over public records revealed a shocking truth. Lily was once an esteemed professor at a local university, known for her brilliance and warmth. Each fact deepened his anguish. How had she fallen so far? Economic misfortune and unaddressed mental health issues had drawn her into the shadows from which no one seemed to care to retrieve her. A part of him screamed in frustration, why hadn't he seen it before? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Insanity wrapped around him, chaining him to his resolve. Mark knew he had to reach out to her, to extend an olive branch wrapped in genuine empathy. Confronting the complexity of his actions, he ventured into the alleys of his mind filled with doubt and shame. Could he truly help her without savaging his own reputation? Each conversation with her deepened his understanding, drawing him closer to a painful reckoning of his own biases. Every layer she peeled away exposed the ugly realities of neglect. He found her struggles mirrored his own fears about authority and virtue. Mark faced a tempest inside him. How could he uphold the law while reconciling his conscience? Each day, the burden swelled. Whispers of dissent began swirling among his peers, and he felt the walls slowly closing in. Frustration from the townsfolk bubbled beneath the surface, escalating the trepidation. The very same people he had vowed to protect questioned his integrity. His breathing grew erratic as he contemplated the town meeting ahead, a relentless sea of faces and the undeniable truth. It would test his commitment to justice like never before. Would they accept his plea for redemption, or would they choose condemnation? Mark felt suffocated, his heart dragging as he readied himself for the reckoning that loomed. The question writhed ominously in his mind. In this clash between duty and redemption, was there hope for forgiveness? The town meeting loomed before Mark like a dark storm cloud, heavy and oppressive. As night fell, he found himself pacing his living room, the weight of anticipation pressing on his chest. Each tick of the clock echoed a sense of impending doom. He could picture the faces of his colleagues, the townsfolk, their disappointment, anger, and confusion swirling in an unpredictable mix. Candor flickered within him. Did he really believe he could be forgiven? Mark's internal dialogue was tumultuous, ricocheting between his sense of duty as a police chief and the remorse that gnawed at his core. How could he expect to inspire trust and respect among those he was meant to protect when he had so brutally betrayed that trust himself? On one hand, he was a guardian of the law. On the other, he was now a figure of scorn. The duality of his existence was suffocating. He took a seat, clutching his phone, hesitant to reach out to Lily. What would he even say? How could he effectively articulate the roller coaster of remorse and admiration she had ignited within him during their conversations? She reminded him that even those who looked lost could hold the deepest wisdom he had trampled on with a single thoughtless act. Determination flickered, igniting a plan in his mind. He could not change the past, but he had to step into this morning's meeting as more than a flawed man. He had to embody the change he wished to see. Every word, every explanation, had to reflect the growth he had experienced, however painful and illuminating. He envisioned standing before the crowd, shedding the weight of his shame and embracing the reality of his vulnerability. The morning dawned bright and unforgiving. The sun's rays felt like judgment penetrating every corner of his being. Arriving at the town hall, he was met by the murmur of gathered citizens, curiosity and anger mingling in the air. Mark took a deep breath, the scent of freshly brewed coffee and the faint fragrance of flowers bringing him back to a momentary clarity. He was here to confront more than just his actions. He was here to expand his understanding of humanity and perhaps show the town their collective fractures. As he stood at the podium, the hall quieted. The weight of gazes crashed down upon him. Mark felt exposed. Yet, for the first time, he welcomed it. He began, the words spilling out with an unnerving honesty. He told them of Lily's past, the depths of her struggle, and how his moment of fury had rooted him in a bedrock of stark realization. With every account, he dug deeper into his remorse, unraveling the threads of shame that had confined him. In detailing his journey, he saw both sympathy and skepticism in their eyes, oppositional forces that battled for dominance against the backdrop of his narrative. The more he shared, the more the walls in the room seemed to shift. He could sense the tide changing, skepticism giving way to contemplation. It struck him that the heart of the problem was not just his fall, but also the town's collective blindness to the nuanced struggles of individuals like Lily. As he spoke of redemption, it felt as if something larger than himself was developing a shared responsibility. Perhaps forgiveness would mean more than absolution. It could signal the beginning of healing for everyone involved. Tension coiled tightly within him, questions swirling in his thoughts. Could his redemption inspire the community to be more open, more compassionate? Would the rawness of his truth resonate deeply enough to begin a cultural shift towards greater empathy? Just as he began to feel a flicker of hope, a voice rang out from the back of the room, a direct challenge, a question poised with urgency. Are you actually prepared to help people like her? Or will this be another false promise? Mark's stomach knotted as he faced the piercing gaze that demanded more than rhetoric, demanded action. The moment stood as a testament to his resolve. The stakes had never felt sharper. Would he step up, or retreat into the shadows of his doubts once again? With the weight of that voice echoing in his mind, the next chapter of his life beckoned. The challenge reverberated through the hall, a sudden gust that threatened to knock Mark off balance. The voice of dissent cut through his internal monologue like a knife, a stark reminder of the fragility of his situation. He felt the urgency of the words hanging in the air, heavy and thick, as if the entire town were holding its breath in anxious anticipation of his response. Panic skittered through him, and he momentarily considered retreating into the carefully constructed armor of authority he had worn for years. But as his mind raced, a more profound instinct took hold. This was the moment he had envisioned, the crucible of his redemption, the proving ground for whether he could truly change. The hush of the room intensified, prompting a sheer determination to arise within. No, he started, forcing the admission out of the tightly coiled fear within. I am not here to make false promises. Each word was deliberate, like stepping carefully into unknown waters. What I did to Lily was inexcusable, and my actions reflect a profound blindness to the suffering we often disregard. The collective gasps and murmurs that followed weren't hostile, but they indicated that the crowd was agitated, fed by a mix of indignation and curiosity. Yet beneath the anger, Mark sensed an ember of hope. He raised his voice, the tremor evident only to himself. I have to do more than apologize. I must take responsibility for the people in our community. I want to create a program, a way to support those who feel lost, to help them find their voice and recognize their value. He could feel the rhythm of his heart steadying as he spoke, steeling his resolve. Thoughts of Lily flourished in his mind. She was emblematic of the struggle he aimed to address, a symbol of resilience who deserved a chance to be heard and seen. This wasn't just about him. It was a chance for others to confront their pain. Mark envisioned a network of compassion that would weave through the town, tentatively embracing those on the fringes, providing opportunity instead of judgment. It was an endeavor built on empathy, not authority. But as he articulated this new vision, creeping doubt began to surface. What if he failed again? The idea of launching into an entirely new realm, of evolving from his role as a police chief into something more, an advocate for the marginalized, sent a shudder through him. His instincts screamed to play it safe. Yet, he recognized that safety means little without the willingness to grow from pain. There are lessons to be learned from this, not just for me, but for all of you who have faced your own struggles. If we can engage with those who suffer, who are often invisible, perhaps that's where the real change begins. A woman in the front row stood, her brow knitted, skepticism mixed with curiosity. How can we trust you? What proof do we have that you're not just following the latest trend in public speaking? Mark met her gaze, realizing that blind faith would not be demanded but earned. Then hold me accountable, he said, leaning into the moment. I will work tirelessly to show you that I am committed to this path. I will invite you all to join me in this process, but I must begin with the acknowledgement that I am flawed and human. I need your help to make this real. The atmosphere felt charged, like a dam waiting to burst open. Ideas were floating like shadows, possibilities dancing in the uncertainty. Mark took a deep breath, sensing that the moment had shifted in subtle ways. He had not provided all the answers. He had simply opened a door, presenting a glimpse of a new journey where healing was communal. He poised to close. A hand shot up from the back of the room. What are the first steps, then? What can you commit to right now? This was it, the defining moment where his hesitation could be challenged or turned into momentum. The stakes had risen higher than he imagined, teetering on the edge of his willingness to take action. As he sensed the town's expectant gaze, unwavering and pressing, he knew one thing unequivocally. The time had come to face the truth, not just of his own frailty, but of the fierce potential for growth that lay ahead. The crowd needed more than words. The call to action hung palpably in the air, allowing Mark to momentarily glimpse new possibilities beyond mere apologies. All he had to do was reach out and start anew. Would he find the courage to answer the call, or would the voice of doubt haunt him once more? Mark's heart pounded as the woman's question echoed in his ears. What can you commit to right now? The words stirred a deep urgency within him. He could not merely stand there floundering in the face of accountability. This was his opportunity to solidify his intentions, but the weight of uncertainty loomed larger with each passing second. He scanned the room, faces drawn tight with skepticism and expectation, a potent mix that urged him to be genuine, yet pulled him toward defensiveness. The silence wrapped around him like a heavy cloak, stifling, but also igniting a fire within. He could almost hear the ticking clock, counting down the moments before doubt would seize the narrative once more. I will start with small group meetings, he stated, his voice steadier than he felt inwardly. I want to create a safe space for anyone who wishes to share their story. Vulnerability is often the first step toward healing. He paused, realizing he needed personal commitment, not just lofty ideals. And I'll be among you, listening and learning. We'll document these experiences, and I will work on a plan for support based on them. Fragments of gratitude shot through him at the thought of stepping down from his position of authority into the roles of peer and witness. Yet self-doubt crept in like a thief. Was this radical shift genuine growth, or merely a flailing attempt to gain approval? The woman's skepticism softened slightly, but there remained an unyielding spark in her gaze. And how do you plan to sustain this? What is stopping you from losing interest in a few months? Trust is earned over time, he replied, a flush of determination rising in his chest. I want to just step back into the shadows of my former role. I intend to keep the community updated on our progress, not only to hold myself accountable, but to keep the conversation alive. This is only the beginning of a broader endeavor. At that moment, he felt a jolt, a nervous thrill. This could be it, the chance to validate his choices and reclaim a meaningful place in their lives. Yet a lurking terror surfaced, the fear of diving headfirst into uncharted waters. Would this turn into another failure? Mark took a moment to center himself. To combat that fear, he envisioned Lily's face. He pictured her struggles and her strength. She was the embodiment of resilience. The thought ignited a sense of responsibility that could not be extinguished. He couldn't go wrong in paving a path for others who felt lost or unseen. Let us schedule our first meeting for next week. I'll put notices around town and make myself available afterwards for anyone wanting to contribute ideas. His words poured out more fluidly as he felt the grip of fear loosening, if only a little. The nods around the room grew in number, accompanied by hesitant murmurs of assent. Had he truly sparked even the slightest ember of hope amidst their distrust? With every bit of feedback, he felt more connected to his purpose. But lurking within was the relentless tension of self-doubt, and as the crowd began to disperse, he questioned whether he could genuinely transform into the person his community needed. "You're different now, aren't you?" A familiar voice cut through his thoughts. It was Tom, a longtime friend and fellow officer, his expression skeptical yet curious. "You've got real conviction, but change isn't easy. You'll face backlash. Are you prepared for that?" Mark opened his mouth to respond, but words faltered as the weight of potential failure loomed over him again. How could he prepare for something he hoped would never materialize? The thought that he might be unworthy of the trust he sought gnawed at him as he walked away from the gathering. He felt the smoldering pressure of his commitment pushing against the walls of self-doubt. The road ahead was murky, fraught with challenges he had yet to contemplate. He needed a plan, one that did not merely intend to prove his worth, but also clarified within him the very nature of his transformation. Before he could lose himself in uncertainty again, he vowed to return to Lily's story and dig deeper, to learn about those he aimed to help and define a more robust system of support. Little did he know, on this journey of accountability, a shocking revelation awaited him, one that would not only test his resolve, but would challenge everything he thought he knew about his past and the woman he wronged. That revelation loomed on the horizon, a storm gathering strength just out of reach. The following week loomed before Mark like a monolith, towering and unyielding. Even as he prepared for the small group meetings, the specter of uncertainty hovered over him, feeding his reluctance to engage fully with the challenge to his integrity. He busied himself with logistics, obtaining materials, drafting notices, and scouting locations, but none of it quelled the persistent unease gnawing at his insides. That it was early morning on the day of the first meeting when Mark found himself standing before a mirror, scrutinizing the reflection of the man in the glass. He noted the creased lines on his brow, the subtle weight of responsibility resting heavily on his shoulders. The conviction he had felt days prior wavered now, threatened by lingering doubts. Could the community witness a genuine evolution in their leader, or would they see through his facade, judging him as a mere fraud? "Focus," he whispered to himself, shaking off the growing apprehension. He had made promises. Now, it was time to deliver beyond his own expectations. The room, chosen for its quiet ambience, buzzed with low voices as villagers trickled in. Mark welcomed them one by one, their expressions a tapestry of curiosity and caution. He struggled to grasp the atmosphere that shifted with every arrival. Would they open up as he had envisioned, or fold into themselves, mistrusting the very man who had let them down before? Once everyone settled, he sensed the weight of their eyes scrutinizing his every move. "Thank you for coming. I know I've made mistakes, but I want to change that narrative." As he spoke, he focused on allowing sincerity to seep through his words. "Let us create a space where vulnerability is our strength." The initial murmurs of awkwardness soothed with hesitant stories. One by one, members shared their experiences in a raw, unfiltered manner, testimonies of hurt, resilience, and the yearning for understanding. Mark listened intently, taking mental notes, his heart racing with each revelation that came tumbling forth. But midway through the session, an elderly woman raised her hand. "Mark," she began, her voice unfaltering but laced with agitation, "you can't just listen. You need to do something real, and it starts with you facing the consequences of your actions." The room fell silent, and every eye turned toward him. This vulnerable moment twisted around him like a tightening vice. Her words echoed Tom's earlier warning. Was he well enough to confront his past, the woman he had wronged, and the collateral damage of his own decisions? Mark's voice cracked, but steadied as he swallowed hard. You're right. I need to confront that very loss. I owe it to all of you who have suffered from my failings. His mind raced. A visceral reminder of Lily's pain was surfacing now, demanding acknowledgement. Then a young man in the back spoke up. Will you even try to make amends? Or is this just about you feeling better, Mark? The challenge sat like a stone in his gut, sharp and heavy. No, he replied, resoluteness finding its way into his voice as he squared his shoulders. It's not about me. It's about all of you. I want to understand how I can start to make things right, particularly with Lily. I need to face the damage I've caused so we can heal together. The discussion ignited an urgency that filled the room, pushing him toward a realization he hadn't expected that the answers he sought were not solely his to uncover. They were woven into the stories shared around him, waiting to be unearthed. As the meeting closed, Mark felt a flicker of hope mixed with trepidation. He sensed that the battle for genuine reform lay in the understanding he had clamored for, yet hadn't yet found. There was a desire for connection pulsating inside him, a recognition that his evolution required not only commitment, but a willingness to embrace and learn from the very scars left behind. Yet, just as he thought he was beginning to reclaim his perspective, a text vibrated against his leg, an urgent message from Tom that read simply, "We have a situation. You want to believe what just happened in the park." With that, the storm he had sensed earlier engulfed him anew, ripping away his temporary solace. It dawned on him with a chilling clarity. The road to redemption was anything but smooth, and revelations were just around the corner. Mark stood in the quiet aftermath of the meeting, the air thick with uncertainty. Thoughts of what Tom's message might entail churned in his mind, colliding with the raw emotions unfurling from the earlier discussion. Several villagers had shared their secrets, layers of pain revealing the interconnected fabric of their experiences. Yet now, urgency pressed at him, relentless and insistent that he stepped outside, the chill of the day contrasting sharply with the heat of his internal turmoil. The park, typically a haven, felt ominous. As he moved briskly toward the scene, adrenaline fueled his pace. What could possibly happen that warranted such a dire text? He recoiled from the possibility. His heartbeat picked up, driven partially by fear and partially by a desperate need for clarity. Arriving at the park, he observed a gathering crowd, faces distorted by worry and confusion. His gut tightened as he approached the group of onlookers. He spotted Tom, his brows knitted in concentration, speaking fervently to a pair of officers. Mark's heart raced. There was something brewing that he could sense, but not yet see. "What is going on?" Mark inquired, the tremor in his voice betraying his resolve. Tom turned, his expression a mix of authority and concern. "There was an altercation. A woman, Lily, was involved. We need to understand what transpired and how it connects to everything else." Mark's stomach dropped as he processed the name. Lily. She was the very person he had skirted around all week, the embodiment of his unresolved pain. What happened? His voice was thick, as if each word required palpable effort to release. "Someone attacked her," Tom replied, urgency sharpening his tone. "We got reports that she intervened in a dispute between two other individuals. Then it turned violent. The notion of her in jeopardy sent a wave of nausea through him, a visceral reaction to the very idea of her being hurt." Mark's mind spiraled. Her past traumas echoed sharply alongside this dreadful present, drawing a direct line to his failures and the neglect of their past. He felt a fierce compulsion to act, as if the universe was demanding he confront this moment. "Where is she now?" Mark pressed, already moving toward the cluster of officers, propelled by a blend of guilt and urgency. "She was taken to the medical tent set up nearby. Minor injuries. But there's more." Tom hesitated, assessing Mark. "Witnesses say she was willing to help. Not just herself, but others. She was courageous." As the last word left Tom's lips, it pierced through Mark, igniting a dormant resolve within him. She had shown bravery he had failed to recognize before. The juxtaposition of her actions against his own cowardice left an indelible mark on his conscience. This was his moment, and he needed to seize it not only for her, but also for the path ahead, the healing that he owed them both. With renewed determination, Mark acknowledged an inner truth. He had been avoiding confrontation with his past, with her. Now, circumstances had forced him back into her life, a life he had once disrupted. The thought of standing before Lily again had never felt so imperative. He rushed toward the medical tent, each step laden with both apprehension and purpose. This would be his chance not merely to apologize, but to face the reality of what he had done. Steeling himself for the emotional fortitude required in that moment, Mark approached the flap of the tent, sensing the weight of what lay ahead. Inside, a series of muted sounds and clinical notes formed an unsettling backdrop. Every breath he took brought him closer to both the reckoning and the possibility of redemption. As he stepped further inside, he caught sight of her bandaged, but strong. The recognition washed over him, amplifying every shared memory and regret. Before he could prepare himself, she turned and met his gaze, her expression a battlefield of hurt and defiance. "Mark," she breathed, and with the weight of her name hung in the air, everything shifted. The reality of the path before him loomed larger than ever, pressing down as he grappled with the magnitude of his choices. Could this be the catalyst to reshape their futures? Or would it fracture under the tension of unresolved emotions? The moment was charged, a palpable turning point that held the potential for both healing and heartbreak. Would this confrontation allow them to rewrite their narratives, or would it plunge them into deeper disarray? As he opened his mouth to speak, his resolve solidified. This encounter could either doom or redeem them. The answer lay in the words left unspoken, lingering around them like an approaching storm. As her name echoed in the air, Mark's heart wrestled with an avalanche of emotions, toppling his carefully constructed facade. The sight of Lily's bandaged arm sent shockwaves through him, a harsh reminder of the pain inflicted not only in the present, but also from the past. The courage she had shown today contrasted sharply with the cowardice he had displayed during their last encounter. He opened his mouth, yet the words he intended felt lodged in his throat, stifled by the gravity of their shared history. "I didn't know you were hurt," he stammered, stumbling into the uneasy space that divided them. The shreds of breath he could muster felt inadequate, weak against the stark reality of her situation. Lily's gaze pierced through him, a mix of anger and vulnerability. "You wouldn't be the only one who didn't know," she replied sharply, her voice steady despite her injuries. "You've been good at ignoring what matters, Mark." Her words hit hard. They were a reflection of his own conscious choices. Ignoring had been easier than confronting the mess he had left behind, but he knew it was time for reckoning. Here she was, standing in front of him, embodying everything he had tried to evade. "I'm sorry," he finally managed to say, the words feeling almost hollow amidst the weight of their implications. Would she even believe him after what had transpired, after the years of avoiding accountability? "Sorry doesn't cut it, does it?" She shot back, eyes glistening, betraying a wealth of raw emotion. "You have no idea how much I've had to fight, to overcome. I've been hurt more times than I can count, and your absence only made it worse." Mark's stomach churned, an uninvited wave of shame washed over him. He thought of all the moments he could have been there for her, an anchor instead of a ghost. "I can't change the past, but I can be here now," he said, desperation edging his tone. "I want to support you, to help you whatever comes next." "Help?" she repeated, skepticism dripping from her voice. "What makes you think you can? You've already proven you're good at running away. What are you really here for, Mark?" The attack on Lily had laid bare the fracture in their relationship, one that demanded concrete action, not just words. He could no longer pretend that offering support equated to actual changes in his behavior. Gritting his teeth, he acknowledged the truth. He needed to prove himself. "I'd like to face this together," he said, resolve hardening in his voice. "I want to understand everything your fight, your courage today. This all connects to our history, doesn't it? I want to confront my failures for both of us." Silence followed, heavy and palpable, as Lily eyed him carefully, consideration battling with skepticism on her features. The tension in the air was thick with unspoken possibilities, a tightrope walk between redemption and ruin. Her expression flickered between hope and doubt, and he witnessed a fleeting moment of vulnerability that felt like a crack in the armor she wore. "Together, huh?" she murmured, her defenses wavering slightly. "You might not be able to handle what that entails, Mark." "I'm ready. Show me," he said, determination flooding his bloodstream. Each word radiated a sincerity he had not allowed himself to reveal before. I want to support you in a way that matters. But even as he spoke, he felt the specter of their past looming, whispering caution in his ear. Memories of helplessness, regrets of lost time, they clawed at him, threatening to dissolve this fragile moment. The stakes were impossibly high now, and he sensed the confrontation would demand both vulnerability and audacity. In stirring silence, Lily seemed to weigh her options, her eyes narrowing in contemplation. Mark held his breath, praying that his commitment to her to right past wrongs would pave the way to a new chapter. Would this be the moment they began reshaping their lives together? Or would it plunge them further into the depths of hurt? Just then, the flap of the medical tent blew open forcefully, the chaos of the outside world crashing in like an unwelcome wave, effectively shattering their fragile exchange. Mark, a voice called out, disrupting the atmosphere. We need you. The situation at the park is escalating. A storm was brewing, but it wasn't just the one surrounding them. Mark's gut twisted with urgency. He turned back to Lily, her expression morphing into a mixture of surprise and concern. There's more to confront than just us, he said, urgency threading through his voice. Now it's time to face what is happening outside, together. As he stepped toward the exit, he felt her presence behind him, a ghost of shared history and current possibilities. What awaited them outside was unknown, but the magnitude of their emotional upheaval was undeniable. The confrontation could just be beginning, and Mark was aware that the next moment would demand everything of him. Would he rise to the occasion or falter under the weight of expectation? With that question lingering heavily in the air, they both stepped into the unknown, an impending storm on the horizon of their rekindled connection. As they stumbled from the tent into the swirling chaos, Mark found his pulse racing in tandem with the raucous noise and frayed emotions around him. The park loomed ahead, a battleground of uncertainty and urgency. His mind flickered, torn between the weight of his unaddressed feelings for Lily and the necessity of stepping up in the face of impending crisis. Keep close, he instructed Lily, who matched his pace step for step. He stole a sidelong glance at her, noting the determination on her face. This was a woman scarred but resolute, refusing to be a passive participant in the narrative of her life. If he was going to prove himself, now was the moment. The tumult at the park was unlike anything he had experienced before. Shouted orders, sirens wailing, and a throng of onlookers creating a pulsing wall of anxiety. Mark's instincts kicked in as he scanned the scene, the weight of the looming confrontation sharpening his focus. As they approached the epicenter of chaos, flashes of red and blue illuminated faces twisted in confusion and fear. What happened? Mark barked at a nearby officer, urgency lacing his tone. Crowd got restless. A few are injured, she replied, her forehead glistening with sweat. We need support for medical teams trying to navigate through. Each word struck him like a cold reality check. For too long, he let his feet shuffle away from confrontation while life demanded he take a stand. Power surged within him at the thought of effecting change both in the immediate and in his relationship with Lily. I'll help, he said firmly, turning to run toward the chaos. Mark, wait, Lily called, her voice slicing through the din. He pivoted and met her determined gaze that flickered between the tumult of a frantic crowd and the intimacy of their raw conversation. I need to do this, he insisted, unwilling to retreat from the intensity of the moment. I won't be a coward anymore. Her expression softened slightly, but skepticism returned. You think just jumping in will fix everything? You need to think this through. The shadows of their past rippled through him. She was right. Impulsiveness could lead to disaster. He swallowed hard, taking a steadying breath. But if I don't act, I'll be stuck in this cycle of regret. Look, I want a future where I don't just confront challenges in my life, but also face my own shortcomings. Lily studied him, the weight of years distilled into a single moment that could pivot toward healing or further estrangement. Mark felt a rush. Had he communicated enough for her to understand? Then, without another moment wasted, Mark sprinted into the crowd, pushing through the turmoil and searching for those in need of support. Every step felt steadier, the rhythm of his heart syncing with a newfound resolve. This was more than a crisis. It was an opportunity to take control not just of the unfolding drama, but of his life. As he began tending to the people struggling on the ground, he realized every small gesture helping someone sit up, applying cold compresses, or simply offering assurance was a step toward transforming his guilt into action. His hands became an extension of his intent. But as he worked, a murmured conversation caught his ear, drawing him back to a critical realization. Unfolding near the center of the chaos, someone was revealing information about the attacks that had started this mayhem. And it's connected to that incident with Lily, they said, brushing against his consciousness like a lightning strike. Mark's heart sank, dread pooling in his stomach as the implications settled in. This was about more than just Lily and him. There was an unseen current pulling them back, linking their past to a painful present. He turned to find Lily, her eyes wide like saucers, the tension of earlier now overshadowed by the shock of sudden revelation. What had they unleashed by confronting their shared past? The moment hovered in the air, heavy with foreboding. Decisions had to be made, truths confronted. As he caught Lily's gaze, Mark could feel their collective history tightening its grip around them, daring him to decipher this chaos. The stakes were higher than ever, and time seemed to stretch infinitely. Would he unravel the truth lurking beyond the turmoil, or would it further entangle their destinies in the pain of their past? The answer lay painfully close, and with tension crackling at the edges, Mark knew this was just the beginning of their trials. As chaos enveloped him, Mark felt his heart pound against desperation. Reality twisted and turned, drawing him into a whirlwind where he was forced to act quickly. He locked eyes with Lily, her brows knitted in concern as she searched for answers he was unprepared to give. The implications hung heavily in the air. Their intertwined past was alive once again, threatening to unravel everything he had just begun to confide in her. It was tempting to retreat into the familiar role of avoidance. But each step Mark took toward the injured cemented the new resolve that had awakened within him. He noticed a woman sprawled on the ground, a surge of panic evident on her pale face. Mark crouched beside her, squeezing her hand gently. "Hey, I'm here," he soothed, his voice cutting through the noise. "What is your name?" "Kayla," she gasped, tears spilling from her eyes as she winced in pain. "Key things to remember, Kayla. Just focus on your breathing," Mark instructed, feeling a sense of clarity settle over him. This moment, tiny and fragile, possessed an undeniable gravity. As he assessed her injuries, a flicker of doubt crept in. Was he truly equipped to help? But with every reassuring look he received from Kayla, he realized he was becoming the anchor he had so desperately sought to be, not just for her, but for himself. The familiar tangle of regret slithered through his mind, an accusation that had haunted him for years. He had dodged making choices that mattered, always allowing the fear of failure to dictate his actions. Yet, here he was, amidst the turmoil, impacting someone else's life directly. This realization ignited a spark in him that demanded action to illuminate his own truths. While tending to Kayla, Mark became acutely aware of the murmurs that echoed around him, the whispers that spun tales of betrayal and hidden agendas. The mention of an incident tied to Lily cut through the chatter like a knife, deepening the conviction stirring within him. It was no longer about patching wounds or comforting minds. It was about confronting the tangled legacy of choices they had made together. As he shifted to help another person, Mark's thoughts turned inward. Could he blame Lily for the circumstances they found themselves in? Every involuntary feeling of empathy layered with resentment threatened to swallow him whole. Yet, a fire ignited within him. This was an opportunity for clarity, not only to face the chaos outside but the turmoil raging within. "Mark." Lily's voice broke through his haze, her urgency a stark contrast to the calm he had managed to cultivate. He prepared himself for an emotional plea, their earlier exchange still so fresh. When he turned to her, she stood amidst the chaos, confidence framing her every word. "We can't ignore what is happening. We need to figure out the mistake that connects us before someone else gets hurt." The call to action she had delivered breathed life into the determination he'd been cultivating. Mark's worries about the past took a back seat to understanding that they needed to confront the truth head-on. No more silence. He could no longer shirk away from his feelings or the shadows of old regrets. Taking a deep breath, he approached Lily, a newfound urgency illuminating his eyes. "We need to talk about what connected you to this chaos. It's time we faced it together." The weight of his words settled between them, forging a promise, a tentative thread between their chaotic pasts and the uncertain future ahead. Mark could feel the air shift as the distance they had allowed to be a chasm began to close. Mark took a step forward, feeling every muscle tense with a mix of fear and anticipation. Let us find out what really happened. As he dug deeper into the emotional turmoil that threatened to consume them, he recognized the first step toward liberation wasn't simply acting. It was confronting the darkness that pulsed behind their shared history. What truths lay within this chaos? What consequences lingered at their fingertips? With each new revelation, the stakes rose. A storm awaited, demanding their response. Would they navigate this labyrinth of choices together, or would the weight of their past become an insurmountable barrier? As they resolved to uncover the secrets binding them, Mark knew the real test was only just beginning. As the storm of chaos enveloped the park, Mark felt a new clarity emerge from the confusion, filling the space previously occupied by doubt. Standing alongside Lily, who had transformed from a haunting shadow of his past to a beacon of resilience, he felt an undeniable shift in their dynamic. This was their moment not just to confront the tumult surrounding them, but to engage with their shared history in a powerful, transformative way. Together, he said firmly, cementing the resolve that had ignited within him, we'll uncover the truth about what is happening and how it connects to us. It's time to face it head-on. The gravity of his words seemed to settle like a heavy blanket over them, a mantle of responsibility he no longer feared to wear. Mark glanced at Lily, and for the first time, the uncertainty in her eyes subsided, replaced by a flicker of hope that mirrored his own awakening. Mark adjusted his stance, shifting from inaction to meaningful engagement. He understood that their journey had morphed into something larger. It was not merely about healing their fragmented relationship. It was about challenging the very fabric of their community, weaving together understanding and empathy. Stepping into the chaos, he made direct eye contact with the crowd, gauging their reactions. Murmurs of disbelief transformed into curiosity as Mark shouted over the noise, urging for calm. We need to find the roots of this disorder. Let's come together to address these issues rather than turning on each other. Slowly, the commotion subsided. People were drawn to the sincerity radiating from his voice, the earnestness that now defined him. Lily, standing resolutely beside him, played her part. Mark's right, she added, the conviction in her voice carrying weight. This is not about finger-pointing. This is a call to unite and understand the violence that has erupted in our community. We can be more than this chaos. The crowd began to listen, absorbing the magnitude of their words. The unfolding drama transformed Mark. No longer burdened by the echoes of his past misdeeds, he embraced the power of vulnerability. I have been a failure in many ways, he admitted, as the gravity of accountability surged through him. But I am committed to creating a structure that addresses these issues, support for our community, building connections rather than barriers. I want to help those who have felt overlooked. Symbolic whispers of the past confronted him. They were hanging specters he could no longer ignore. As people nodded and murmured supportive affirmations, Mark felt the momentum gathering around him. He turned to Lily, understanding that their journey had now intertwined with the narrative of change, not just for themselves, but for all who had been affected. Together, we can chart a new course, he said, a wave of confidence washing over him. Lily, let us not only uncover the truth about what happened, but also establish outreach programs that lend a voice to those feeling unheard. Mark saw a realization spark in Lily's eyes as she nodded, her belief in their purpose coalescing with his. There was potential for lasting transformation both personally and for the community. In that moment, the air shifted. It was electric with possibility. Mark and Lily stood together as agents of change, ready to face the repercussions of their past in order to build a brighter future. He could sense the crowd's apprehension meld into curiosity, their whispers turning into discussions about actionable steps rather than condemnation. They began to outline a plan for community engagement. Mark clarified next steps, drawing from the collective experiences shared in the park and his current resolve. We will host town forums designed for everyone to voice their stories, their struggles, and their solutions. We can't change the past, but we can redefine our future. Each word felt like a stone laid in the foundation of a new path, one where they would be allies rooted in collaboration and understanding. Challenges would remain, but Mark felt the embers of hope smoldering. It was a flicker of faith in their collective ability to confront what had been difficult to face. As the park's atmosphere began to transform, Mark noticed flickers of gratitude from those surrounding him. He felt recognized, not as the fallen chief, but as a man willing to engage in difficult conversations. The collective weight of guilt and shame that once trapped him had shifted. He was now embodying the very essence of leadership he had aspired to uphold. The evening sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the park. Mark shared a final thought. This isn't the end of our journey. It's just the beginning. Let us move forward together. The ripple effect of that moment would echo throughout the community, fostering engagement and accountability that he had once sought to escape. The path to redemption had forged an unbreakable bond between Mark and Lily, marking a new chapter of not just healing for oneself, but healing for an entire town. As the crowd began to disperse, Mark felt a sense of solid confidence. He had conquered not just his past actions, but had taken definitive steps into a future of established purpose. The road ahead was still uncertain, but he had proven to himself and to his community that growth, empathy, and connection were powerful allies in the journey of transformation. You need to subscribe now to stay informed on more powerful stories of personal evolution and transformation. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and keep these stories alive. Comment your reactions and theories about this transformative ending. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this compelling journey of redemption and resilience.